This is the You, Me, and BTC podcast.
Cryptocurrency decrypted.
Welcome to episode 53, and Happy New Year. About a year ago, 2014 was just getting started, and we made some Bitcoin-related New Year's resolutions right here on the show. Telling more people about Bitcoin and spending it in person were some of my favorites. Since 2015 is now upon us, it's time to check in and see how we did. My awesome co-hosts will explain how they kept their Bitcoin promises a lot better than I did. So stay tuned to hear our stories. Your hosts are Tim Baker, John Stuart, and myself, Daniel Brown. Here we go. Alright guys, Happy New Year. It is time to do this all over again. We had our 52nd episode last week. That makes 1 year, and it's time to do another year. So, thanks for joining us everybody. I am Daniel Brown, and I'm here with...
Tim Baker. Hi everybody.
And John Stewart.
Alright. So we had a pretty awesome idea for today because it's New Year's Day, at least for all of you guys. It will be in a day or two for us. We're recording this a little early like we always do. So Happy New Year, and what we wanted to talk about was our last New Year's episode, which, I think it didn't come out till a week or two after actual New Year's Day, but it was episode 3. Which I just checked today, and I think I remember mentioning our New Year's show several times on the show before, and I'm pretty sure I've always said it was episode 1 or 2, and I went back and checked today, and it's episode 3, so I apologize if I threw anyone off. At least you got to listen to an extra episode, right? So anyway, we wanted to talk about those resolutions, and see how they went. It's kind of funny. The one thing for me that might have been fairly important, I pretty much just didn't do. And the other two things, it's not like I didn't want to do them. I just decided they weren't super important. And I actually wrote a piece just today and released a bits and pieces article, kind of encouraging the opposite. Not really encouraging. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. We're going to get to it. We're going to go one at a time. So, Tim, do you want to mention the first two and kind of describe how you've done? They kind of go together. We separated them, but in a way, they're kind of the same thing, so.
We decided that we wanted to spend less Bitcoin and buy more Bitcoin. Or not necessarily spend. I don't remember if I said spend less. I said sell less, and maybe that's what you guys said too.
Yeah, you're right.
But buy more and sell less, which I don't think I've sold any Bitcoin this entire year, which was part of my resolution. And for a while, when I still had a regular job, I was buying. I had like a set amount that I bought at the end of a week, like out of the paycheck that I got. I think I'd put like 100 towards it or something like that, and I'd just buy some. But that was also before Coinbase started getting a little bit weird, and I got off of that, so that made it a little bit harder to buy regularly. But I think I did pretty good with that one. It's actually one of my better New Year's resolutions. Normally I'm not too good with those.
Yeah. No, I agree. They kind of go crazy sometimes, and we even mentioned in the episode, we kind of think they're dumb just because of how often they got broken, but we just did them just for fun. And I guess another thing that I should have said earlier is that it was just me and Tim in that episode. John wasn't able to make it. I have no clue why. It was a year ago. But anyway, it was just us two. But we can still ask you, John, do you have any thoughts on how much you've bought? Have you been able to buy regularly? Have you had to sell anything like that?
I can't say if I've sold any. I feel like I probably hadn't, or I haven't, but I'm not sure if that's true or not. I know I've bought a lot of stuff with Bitcoin. I've been like, probably because of purse, spending way too much money using Bitcoin. And along with that, yeah, I've been buying a lot too. I probably buy once or twice a month,
Okay.
which I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but just I guess it depends on how much you buy at one time. But yeah, I've been buying a lot and don't remember selling any. Been spending a lot, but
Yeah, that's pretty good. I didn't know that, Tim, you said you were able to buy pretty much weekly for a while. I never knew that.
It might have been monthly. I'm not sure, but I think it was
Okay.
just because that's whenever I had a. That's like I told him I wasn't spending much. It might have been like maybe like point 0.1 of a Bitcoin
Okay.
a week or something like that.
Yeah, that's still a pretty decent amount. And again, I didn't know John was buying as frequently either because I don't know that I've straight up bought much this year. I mean, I'm sure I have a few times, but certainly not regularly. I mean, I've bought and sold more for trading purposes, but not just buying some to keep it and hold on to it. At least not a ton. So I don't know. I might end up being the loser this week. I don't know if I came through on any of these resolutions much at all, but yeah, I don't remember buying a ton.
most of my buying hasn't been like to save. It's mostly been buying so that I could spend it, which I guess is still good.
Right.
But
That's actually a good point. That's something that I kind of brought up in my article that I just wrote today. I just quickly mentioned it, but it's something worth expanding upon. There is a pretty important difference between selling and spending. I mean, yeah, in a way you're cashing out both ways. In a way you're getting out of Bitcoin either way. In those ways, it's similar. But when you just sell Bitcoin for dollars, I don't know. I mean, if you know what you're doing, it can be perfectly fine. And if you're an investor and you just want to secure some gains, I mean, I'm not going to go out and tell you that's a bad idea. There's always a good time to sell and a good time to buy, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with trying to make more dollars or selling so that you can make more Bitcoins in the future. Nothing really wrong with that, but still, in a really general sense, I would say that selling for dollars is, not always the best decision, especially since we generally believe that Bitcoin, the price would go up, but even that we have no clue. But the difference is when you spend Bitcoins, I don't know, it seems really helpful in a lot of ways. I mean, it depends what you're buying, I guess, but on the one hand, you're supporting the economy. If you buy something from Dell or Microsoft, I mean, it's a good way to support the economy and get some business going through Bitcoin. That's pretty awesome. Now, on the one hand, they're also probably just going to sell it on the exchange, which kind of stinks, but that's the way it is. And that's not a terrible thing. It can help stabilize the price if there's money going in and out of Bitcoin regularly. But then also, if you buy from Purse, that's a little different because the rate on Purse is, well, I guess I'll explain it.
look it up if you've never heard of Purse.io.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Because it is a pretty interesting system, but the general idea is that we'll just use 10% as an example. If I want to spend Bitcoin, I can spend it at Amazon and I get a 10% discount. Somebody else buys that thing for me on Amazon and they get the Bitcoin. So in a way, the Bitcoin rate on Purse is actually higher than the market rate. So in a way, that sort of can help boost the price. It's kind of a different market where the price is higher because that's just what the rate is on Purse. That's the way Purse works. And now there's a reason that the rate is higher because people can buy it with credit cards and stuff like that. Or some people have like Amazon gift cards that they just want to use up and they're willing to take a 10% hit. I'm kind of starting to ramble again. The point is, spending Bitcoins is different than selling them. I would generally encourage spending above selling. I'm not saying you should just go out there and blow all your money and never save Bitcoins, but that's kind of what I think. I'm going to stop talking. Do you guys any thoughts?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. Well, I definitely agree with what you're saying about how purse is a little bit different than spending anywhere else. And one element of that you didn't really go into too much is that when you spend it on purse, somebody else is getting Bitcoin. So that eliminates the problem that you mentioned earlier with, like, if you're buying from Dell or whatever, where they're basically going to be transferring it right back into dollars as soon as they get it from you.
Right.
And purse doesn't have that problem. The other thing is, like, even with spending at Dell or whatever places like that, well, our ultimate goal is that those companies won't have to put it back into dollars to then use it
definitely.
to pay their employees or whatever. So the way I think of it, the more things we buy with Bitcoin, like the more we spend Bitcoin, the closer we get to that point. Just spending in general, I think, will help get us there. But I mean, and that leads me to, like, my final point, I guess, which is just that it's a currency, and it's not awesome because you can save. It's awesome because you can use it to buy things. And so, like, spending is what you're supposed to do with a currency. So yeah, I think spending Bitcoin is good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the way that some people define currency, as something that you can spend and something that you can save. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing to do both of those things. And we're at a point now where it's really easy to spend Bitcoin, and there are tons of ways and places to do it. So heck yeah, why not do it when you want to and when you can? And that's pretty much what I ended up saying in my article, is like, oh, I feel like spending it, so I'm going to spend it. That's kind of just how
that's
it goes.
what it's for.
Right. And another thing that might be worth touching on is just that I kind of mentioned how if you focus too much on when you could have bought or sold, I mean, if anybody who is, even if you're not like actually an investor, but if you're just trying to make some money, any kind of trading and making money, if you look backwards and you look at where you could have bought or where you could have sold, you're never, ever going to feel successful, because no matter when you trade, you're going to realize later that there could have been a better time. I mean, that's pretty much 100%, because it's almost never going to happen that you're going to buy and the price is never going to go down and never going to go up. It's almost always going to do a little bit of both. And my point with that is just that, yeah, maybe the price is a little bit low now. Maybe it's not the best time to spend money, but I've still made a pretty awesome amount compared to when I first bought Bitcoin. I'm not going to worry about it that much. As long as I'm not losing money, I'm just going to, like I said, sure, I feel like spending it and I'm going to. So I'm not going to worry about, oh, I could have sold it or spent it when it was $1,200. Why don't I just wait and wait and wait? I'm not going to get caught up in that. I'm just going to be content with the fact that, yeah, I made a little bit of money and that's pretty sweet. Because ultimately, we're not even really here to make money. I mean, we love that and we're going to try to do that when we can. But I mean, our ultimate goal is to have Bitcoin be used by a lot of people, not to make the price skyrocket. Do you guys agree with that?
Well, I think even if you're trying to make the price skyrocket, it still doesn't make sense to worry about. I mean, obviously you're going to do it, but it doesn't really make sense to worry about when you could have bought and sold, because obviously there's always going to be, well, obviously there doesn't have to be, but there's almost always going to be a time that you should have sold or a time that you should have bought, and
right.
You're not necessarily going to hit all those.
Exactly.
And it doesn't help afterwards to, I mean, that's fine if you just want to keep them and then you think the price is going to go up, but it doesn't help to worry about it or just get caught up in the price.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to say, that it's fine if you do want to keep it. I'm not saying that you should spend it just because for the sake of spending it. I mean, if you don't need to spend it and if you don't want to spend it, then sure, why not just hang on to it, maybe see what happens. But if you want to buy something and if you have Bitcoins, don't be afraid to spend them just because you think it might go up in the future, I think is kind of my main point. Just don't be afraid to spend them. Anyway, I guess what's the next one? Was that proselytize more? John, are you okay with just... Do you want to just hit that real quick?
Yeah, okay, so proselytizing more, if we're gonna use that word,
Yeah.
which I guess...
Yeah, that's the way Tim described it in episode 3.
I guess I don't know if we have problems with that now or something, but I'm just gonna keep using it.
Yeah, it works.
Because it's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, yeah, I feel like, well, for one, we've done this podcast all year, and that could maybe count
That's a good point, definitely.
as something. Other than that, I mean, I do think I've talked to people about it a lot more this year. I mean, this wasn't my resolution because I didn't have any, obviously. But, yeah, I think I probably did. I think I definitely talked to people a lot more about it. And I think that was a pretty big focus on the show, too, because it was probably every episode that we talked about how, like, we think that it's, like, a big deal and it is going to change the world. So, like, we should be telling people about it, I guess. It would just make sense. It's not like something that you have to go out of your way to do. It's like if you actually think that it's going to do all this stuff, it's kind of natural to talk to people about it. And I think without really trying to, I think we have done that.
Right, yeah, I think that's true. It's happened, obviously, quite a bit on the podcast. And it's been interesting with the holidays recently. I've spent quite a bit of time with my extended family and just cousins and aunts and uncles that the people that you see on holidays. And yeah, it actually has come up quite a bit. They know that that's kind of what I do. That's kind of who I am. A place where I put a ton of my focus. And we talk about it. And we have a lot of fun talking about it. And some people are on board. Some people are just like, oh, that's computer stuff. You deal with that. I'll sit here with my whatever they use, cash or credit card. I don't know. But some people just aren't that interested, which is understandable. I mean, older people who don't really care much about technology, obviously I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to force Bitcoin down your throat if you don't want to use it.
You've heard it here. Daniel's coming for all of you old people.
Yeah, but no, I mean, if you're not that interested, that's fine, but I'm still going to hold to my beliefs that it's helpful and that it can help people and it can make life easier and stuff like that. So anyway, how much have you proselytized, Tim?
Outside of this podcast and even here, in general, I don't bring it up too much, partly just because that's who I am. I don't normally talk to people a whole lot. I'd rather, for whatever reason, I don't normally like to talk about myself that much. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I don't like to talk about...
You're talking about yourself right now.
I know.
You talk about yourself this whole podcast.
I know that. I know. I don't like to talk about myself and things I do around people who don't already know, if that makes... Because especially for Bitcoin, because I don't feel I have enough of a grasp of it to explain it. And I know from past things... No, I should get over this, but I feel like from past things that the language I tend to use doesn't really inspire too much confidence in it. I have a few people who talk to me only because they haven't seen me use Bitcoin directly, but they know that I do have it because of things that they've gotten. And I'll talk about it a little bit with them and I'll kind of explain it to them. Most of them are younger, more around our age, and they'll be like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, what time are you getting out? And sometimes I explain I'm not really getting out. Other times I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, if it drops like really, really low, I'll sell the stuff. But
okay, so when you say getting out, you mean like being done with Bitcoin, taking your gains?
Cashing out.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because that's one of the first things that people tend to ask because they look at it as
right.
Okay, you made a lot of money on the way, because that's mostly what they've heard about it. They may have heard of someone who made a lot of money or
yeah, definitely
something like that. It's a very fleeting knowledge of it, and of course what's going to spring back is the bigger stories. It's not going to be about how Bitcoin's a quicker, more streamlined payment option. It's that someone got rich off of it, or that someone was arrested for it because of drugs, or something like that. So that's more what I'm being asked about, and I'll try to answer it, but I try not to get too much into it because I don't have the technical backing, because if they ask me some kind of technical question about it, I'm just like, well, there's a computer and you mine it, and it mines it by, wait, what are you talking about mining? Well, there's transactions and there's these what are blocks? And then I have to, and a lot of these times it's when these people aren't in their right minds either, so that doesn't help. So eventually I just let them think that they quit. I just let them get to where they're not interested in the conversation anymore, and they just walk away.
I think that's actually a really good point. Actually, several things you said. Yes, a lot of people just have a fleeting understanding, and they think that you just buy Bitcoin, wait for the price to go up, and then sell it. It's kind of funny. For quite a while, I mean, I guess I will say until surprisingly recently, I never really knew that with the stock market, you're supposed to, when you buy stock, you're supposed to get dividends from it. I mean, probably people told me, but I never really thought about it that way. The way I see it with the stock market, or at least I used to, is just that you buy something, you hope that the price will go up, and then you sell it. But that's not really the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to buy something and expect to get that much money out of it before you even sell it. You're supposed to just hope that they make a lot of money and you get a lot of dividends. You're not really supposed to hope that the price goes up. I mean, obviously that's all the people do anymore, but that's not really the idea behind it.
Obviously, I don't know. Well, it's not obvious. Maybe I am a stockbroker, but I'm not a stockbroker. I'm not involved in stocks, so I don't know. But I've heard people say in the past, and this might explain why we normally hear about the buying and selling, is because there's a lot more money in the stock market than there would be if it wasn't part of is it IRA stuff or what like they take money along with your taxes and they invest it. You have to put it into something with the stock market or something like that.
401k?
Yeah, stuff like that where you either put it in there or the government just takes it. So a lot of people throw their money in there, and some people think that it's a lot more popular than, or not popular, there's a lot more stuff in there because of that, not because people really think of that as a good idea.
So you're saying that the only reason there's so much money in the stock market is because if people don't put it in their 401ks or in whatever these accounts are, then it just kind of gets taxed a lot more and stuff like that. So kind of like the government incentivizes people to put money in the stock market, even if they don't really see it as the best idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think I've heard in the past.
Yeah.
Look it up for yourself, obviously.
Yeah, I think I've heard that too, and even if I didn't hear it, it sounds like something the government would do, so... Anyway, so I really do like that idea, that point that you brought up. And then before that, you were saying how you don't normally bring it up with people who don't already know. And actually, that's a really good point. That's kind of what I do too. And I should have kind of mentioned that. I don't just like randomly walk up to people and be like, hey, have you heard about Bitcoin? Not really even good friends. I mean, if I'm hanging out with people that I know, I don't just randomly bring up Bitcoin very often. I've probably done it now or then, but normally it's just people who know that, like I said, they know that's who I am and that's what I do. They'll ask me, oh, hey, how's Bitcoin doing? And I'll be like, oh, yeah, it's pretty low right now, but hey, the website, the podcast, it's all going pretty well, so that's good. And that's kind of how the conversation goes. So, I don't know, maybe that doesn't fall under the definition of proselytizing then. Do you have to be introducing somebody to something for it to be proselytizing? Is just talking about it proselytizing, or?
I don't think so. I don't think that you have to be introducing someone, because I mean, anything that you proselytize for, a lot of times it is things that people have already heard of.
Yeah, and you're just kind of explaining it more and talking about it.
Yeah. It's not that you're trying to, like, tell them that it exists. You're trying to convince them why it's a good idea.
Right, yeah.
And I think I would agree with you guys that it mostly, when I said that I've done it more this year, it's not that I've, like, gone up and found people on the street and been like, hey, have you heard about this thing called Bitcoin?
Yeah.
It's more like, if it comes up in conversation or we're talking about something that I see a relation between that and Bitcoin or whatever, then I might bring it up. And I think I've done that a few times. I think actually there is one, I can think of actually 2 occasions where I talked about it with somebody the first time I met them, though.
All right. Yeah, that's definitely a good thing.
Now, granted, these were like computer science people, and we were kind of talking. Yeah, we're talking about computers, and I just kind of bring it up. It in a situation like that, it's not really that awkward. One of the people that I talked to I talked to them about Bitcoin the first time I met them, ended up actually telling me that they had been mining for a while.
Okay.
He wasn't really like into Bitcoin. It was more just like, oh, I've got a really souped up computer. I might as well try this for a while, and like maybe I'll make a little money. He was like telling me how he like stopped doing it once stuff kind of started coming up with like the government like arresting people.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I mean, they weren't arresting people just for using Bitcoin, but just when it started to get more in the news and stuff, he was like, oh, I'm probably just going to stop because I don't really like... He wasn't invested in it. It was more just a fun thing to do.
Right, yeah, I definitely understand that. And yeah, it's always good to meet people who already know what you're talking about. I love it when that happens. Especially, I mean, it hasn't happened a ton, but it's interesting to meet people who actually got into it before I did too. And just, yeah, like talk about their experiences. I've met a few people kind of in a similar position where they just thought it was cool and thought they'd try their hand at mining just for fun. And yeah, I definitely love those kinds of people. Another thing that I wanted to ask, actually, this is something that we talked about, a little bit in episode 3, which I don't remember if I mentioned on the recording yet, but I actually did go back today and listen to it. And I think Tim, I think you were mentioning how it might be a good idea to email businesses or something and just be like, hey, do you accept Bitcoin? Have you considered it? I'd spend Bitcoin at your store, something like that. Have either of you two done that and asked anyone if they accept Bitcoin or if they would?
The ones I remember, I emailed JM Bullion, and they mentioned they already had people looking into it, something along those lines. Didn't hear much back from them. And then one time in the summer, I think you were actually there while I was going back and forth with this guy on Twitter. He was some kind of an artist. He does like miniatures, but he sells he sells calendars, t-shirts, and I told him I'd buy like a $50 order if he took Bitcoin, which at first he sounded like all like, yeah, I'll take it. And then he was like, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. And at first he was making fun of it, and then he was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then as far as I know, he hasn't accepted it, but that was, I think I follow him like Instagram and Twitter. He's got some pretty cool stuff. I think it's Life of Skinner or something like that. He's the guy who did the artwork for the new Mastodon album, which actually, that was one of the things that came out this year that it was one of the bigger bands that took, Bitcoin this year along with
we never
50 Cent.
We never talked about that, did we?
We might have mentioned it, but not much,
think we did
I don't
mention
think.
it. Yeah, we didn't talk about it very much.
But yeah, I thought I remembered the JM Bullion story, Tim, and maybe you even told it in that episode. I don't remember, but... And then, yeah, I forgot about that other guy that... Yeah, he was kind of confusing about that, but that's still definitely... Always it's worth a try, and that's something, I guess, over the next year, or even just over the next days. I already have some ideas for people that I have thought in the past should accept Bitcoin, and I still think they should, so I really should just send an email, and even if they don't do it because of me, it'll just help them be like, oh, there's people out there, and maybe down the road they'll start to see more people. I'm not going to have my goal to be to change them immediately. My goal is just going to be to send them an email so that they know there are people who would spend it. My best idea so far is my cigar dealer. That's probably where I spend the most of my money, so...
Oh, no.
Why? I love how you put it like that.
What do you mean?
He's my cigar dealer.
It makes it sound like you buy from some guy like in an alleyway.
Oh.
He probably does accept Bitcoin if that guy exists. Yeah, hopefully my beer dealer will start accepting Bitcoin too.
Daniel's consumption of cigars has gone past what a normal person should ever allow themselves to do, so...
What are you talking about, Tim?
He smokes a
smoke
pack
constantly.
a day of cigars.
Yeah, 20 pack. Anyway. Oh, that was good. Anything else on that one before we move on?
I was just going to mention something about just something funny that people, whenever, like when people ask me about Bitcoin, they'll always be like, so what's the price at? Like I saw it was at like $400 like a month ago. Like it is, like they for some reason think it's that price, and then that makes it worse whenever I'm trying to explain it.
Yeah.
They're like, no, it dropped down to like 250. It's back up to 300 today. It just went over, and they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, that's not the best way for me to show this thing.
Yeah. That's definitely interesting, and I think at least one thing that can help that is just to mention, oh, but I bought it when it was 20 or 30 bucks. So
yeah, I'm not talking about it from a thing of like losing the money. I'm talking about because it looks very unstabilized to them, which it's not very stable.
Okay,
but
good
they're
call.
also taking out the fact that part of the reason why the price changes is Bitcoin changes, but also the dollar changes all the time. So it's not just Bitcoin that's unstable; it's the dollar going up in value too.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that all the time with how can you even define what something is worth because it's all just relative, but
Right. I think it's easy to call Bitcoin unstable. I think it's fair to say that the dollar's value changes a lot more than people realize, maybe a lot faster than people realize. I'm not sure I would call it unstable at the moment, just because it's, in general, if you have a dollar, it'll be worth a dollar for a little while anyway. And even once you do start to notice the change, it's going to go from like a dollar to maybe like 90 cents. Whereas with Bitcoin in the past year, it's been all over the map. So I don't think it's fair to say Bitcoin is unstable and the dollar is unstable in the same sentence, because relatively, Bitcoin compared to the dollar is not unstable at all. But I know what you're saying, Tim.
Okay, I shouldn't have said it that the dollar is unstable. I was more meaning that the dollar it changes in value, but you can't see that. No one's ever going to realize,
Right.
oh, a dollar buys 90 cents, because it's not like that. It'll just still be a dollar, the price. People was like, why is bread going up? I'm like, well, it could be going up, but bread could also be the dollar could be buying
Right.
less.
Yeah.
But it takes a little bit too much looking at.
people can think straight from dollars to what they buy, but people don't think of Bitcoin that way. They think of Bitcoin to dollars, then to what you buy.
Right.
It kind of messes up. But anyways, with the businesses, this is kind of going back. I should have probably went before Tim looking back.
You're
but,
fine.
Yeah, that was something that I thought about a lot, and I kind of would just forget about it and then think about it again. But I probably, now that you guys are talking about it, I think I probably need to start trying to do that more, like email businesses or whatever. I think the first time I started thinking about it was after the conference, because I remember Davi Barker was talking about how he would go to like charity drives or something, and he would like put money in, and then he would attach a note to it that would say like, here's this money, like take it and like use it and enjoy it or whatever. But if you wanted to start accepting Bitcoin, like I would double this. And
yeah,
I mean that's kind of what he does though. Like he helps people start accepting Bitcoin, so it's maybe a little bit different for him, but yeah, I mean something like that could be helpful.
You're exactly right. It might not make a ton of sense for us to start going to charity events and writing letters about accepting Bitcoin.
Because we're expecting them to do all the work, but he like helps people do that.
Right.
Does he?
That's part of what Bitcoin Not Bombs does, isn't it? They help charitable organizations start accepting Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure that's part of what they do. That's why they have like pamphlets and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if he's like going in and like setting up their computers to do it and stuff. I mean, he might be just encouraging them and telling them who to contact and stuff. But I think, yeah, of course he probably has to encourage them and help them and give them some instructions. So
yeah, I'm just reading. This is what their website says. On Bitcoin Not Bombs, we are a launching pad for NGOs and social entrepreneurs who wish to enter into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. We offer premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a donation platform and to fully capitalize on that decision in their fundraising efforts. So, but I mean, they focus on nonprofit. That's why he does this at charity drive things. It's not as much that he's going in and setting up computers. It's more that he helps them like promote themselves and like teaches them about it, I guess.
Right. Like I was trying to say is that's not exactly what our position is, so we're not going to do exactly that, but if I want to email a place I shop pretty often and just say, hey, I would spend Bitcoin at your store, then I think that's a pretty easy thing to do, and it could be helpful. I mean, maybe it won't be, but it's so easy that it just can't hurt to try. So then I guess I'm going to move on then to the last one that we want to talk about. And this is interesting because I kind of feel bad. It was really something I wanted to do. And I mean, I guess I have a day or two left. Maybe I could pull out something crazy. I don't know. You guys will be hearing this on New Year's. Maybe I can figure something out by then. I don't really have any clue. But what I wanted to do was spend Bitcoin in person. I wanted to buy something, not on the internet, in person. I've sent Bitcoins to Tim and a couple other people in person, like to their phones and stuff, but it wasn't to buy something. I think it was only to friends, never from like a different person. Like I've never even done a Bitcoin trade in person that I can remember. But that was my goal. I talked about it quite a bit and I was really excited about it. I even tried a couple times. I wanted to buy something in person with Bitcoin, and it didn't happen. That's about all there is to it for me. I kind of feel bad. I'm going to keep trying to make it happen, but it hasn't happened so far. Tim, I think you're the only one who was able to do it. Am I right?
I think so. It was at the Bitcoin, the Beltway conference. I bought a shirt,
Oh,
I bought
yeah.
John's shirt, and I bought a hat, and...
No, you didn't buy the hat at first. You just bought a shirt for you.
No, I
and a
know, I
shirt.
bought the hat later, yeah. Do you remember what shirt I bought?
Wasn't it the one that you buy the shirt and they also give a hoodie to someone, right? Like that orange one?
Yeah, it was this. I think we both got the same one. It's just the Bitcoin Not Bombs shirt.
Yeah, they just, when you buy the t-shirt, they give a hoodie to a homeless person kind of on your behalf, so.
So, yeah, I bought that there, and then had either the shirt taken and thrown away by the servers or stolen by someone. I'm not really sure why or who. But then I went back and bought a beanie style hat with a little tab at it, which I've again lost at Daniel's house.
Yeah, now I have that, and I'm not giving it back, so.
Okay. Why didn't you buy anything there?
Tim, do you know how I get when people try to get me to spend money on something other than cigars?
No. I think you were like in the middle of a trade during that, weren't you? And you like didn't have any because you were like holding money for somebody else or something.
That's possible. I could see that, yeah.
And so you like all your money was kind of held up at the time.
Yep. I mean, I'm in that situation a lot, so that's probably true. Right now, I'm pretty much negative dollars right now. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to have some of Tim's dollars, and I don't have them, I think.
If John isn't right, which he probably is, I could definitely understand you not buying. Which I don't get that as bad as you. Like normally I'm just cheap all over. But Daniel, for whatever reason, can spend $90 on a whim on cigars, and then if he has to choose,
or like $160. You never know.
All right, 160. I'm sorry, but then he will literally literally about 10 minutes we'll go back and forth between buying Twizzlers or Swedish Fish because the Swedish Fish is $1.25 more, and he doesn't want to spend that much money. He doesn't need, and he probably doesn't need the sugar either. And I don't know what to get.
I can understand that too. I went shoe shopping with him
once. Oh gosh, I remember that. Yeah, because we had nothing else to do. Yeah,
it's a long story, but anyways,
the worst part is Tim was not exaggerating at all. Like, I know people exaggerate by definition when you're on the internet, but Tim was not exaggerating. It probably was 10 minutes.
I thought he was joking at first.
And shoe shopping was a lot more than that.
Yeah, shoe shopping was like at least an hour.
Hey, in my defense, I still have
Maybe
those
a couple
shoes,
more.
and I still wear them every day. So,
Hey, I'm not criticizing you because I'm like exactly the same way. so
I guess I'll just say real quick, Happy New Year again. All the best to you, and we wish the best for us too, I guess. We hope we have a great year of podcasting, and we hope you stick around and love it.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Thanks for listening to episode 53. All of the music in today's show was from John Stuart. We'll see you next Thursday.